We're going to have a lecture called Removing the Mask, which will not be too long. But it doesn't take long on Halloween or at a masked ball to pull the mask off, does it? Everybody says, surprise. First of all, if we're going to take a mask off, we have to take the mask off of something. And what are we going to unmask? In this case, we must perceive that there is something real about us. There is something also that is unreal about us. And the quicker we discover it and acknowledge it and learn to distinguish the difference, the quicker we will make progress in the light. Why is it important that we know the difference? It is important that we know the difference because otherwise we are going to be feeding the mask and starving the real man. We do a great deal to the mask, as we find out when we travel around and notice the opulent fortunes that are amassed by people like Elizabeth Arden, the late Elizabeth Arden, and other famous beauticians who make a comfortable living, at least they are able to live quite comfortably, on the idea of creating shimmering glamour for the feminine sex. Somehow or other they have neglected most males, and about all that we have is shaving lotion to put on as far as glamour goes. But we have our masks, ladies, I assure you. Both men and women have the mask of human consciousness. And we spend a great deal of time and a great deal of energy in creating these masks, which we now decide we're going to remove. Someone may say, why should I? I've been pampering my ego all these years. Why in the world should I now decide that I'm going to quit pampering it? Well, there are many good reasons why we should. The main thing is that we must learn to overcome illusion because it has the word ILL in the front of it. You know what ILL means? It means ill. The mask is sick. That's why people are sick, because it's a phony creation. You and I may be a little bit askance sometime as we look at the bearded rebels that are now sprouting out in California and all over the country. Men who resent the times, they rebel against the type of life that we call conformism, and they go into what we call nonconformism. We must understand these poor people. They're not all as bad as they look. They have a mask. And they're sick and tired of the phoniness of the world. So they put another mask on. Some of them look like Santa Claus, and some look like the prophet Amos. But whatever the case may be, and we may laugh at it if we want to, it's all part of the masquerade that human beings indulge in. And we do a lot of it. We do an awful lot of it. In fact, we even sometimes fool ourselves. I remember the American Express man in my hometown. He said to me, you better behave yourself one time. He said, or you'll meet yourself coming out the door. Well, this is very true. Now, I'm going to get into some very sensible things here, I hope. This is the area of the mask down here in the human level. There's no masquerade up here at all. And there's no masquerade here in the Holy Christ Hour. The unrealities of life are all centered down in the human. You never find any unreality. You'll never find anything phony in God. And we do deceive ourselves. We go easy on ourselves, and we're pretty hard on our neighbors sometimes. Did I ever tell you people about the time in New York City when I was speaking in one of the finer old homes there in New York, that a lady came up to me out of the group right after a beautiful dictation from one of the masters. This was one of the most beautiful dictations you could ever imagine. She came up to me and she said, "I want to talk to you in private, may I?" And I wanted to be obliging, so I said, "Certainly." I went over to the corner of the room, she took her finger out, she pointed it over at another woman. She said, "You see that woman over there?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, that woman is a terrible woman." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Why, she wears mascara." Mascara. And this lady who said it had her eyes plastered with it. Now, this actually happened to me. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know whether to laugh or whether to cry. The Scotchman has an old saying for that. He says, "Oh, would the gods the gift he gie us to see ourselves as others see us." We always are able to remove other people's masks, but we want to keep our own firmly fixed on our faces. I think the world is becoming, however, increasingly more honest in the masses of people. I take note of that going back to the time of Will Rogers. Because Will Rogers was a very popular figure, and he practiced a great deal of honesty, and he unmasked many of the situations in life with his very clever wit. Now, our home is located just below Will Rogers' Shrine of the Sun. And we have been up there once or twice this summer, went in the Will Rogers Shrine, and we noticed some of the memorable pictures of him and Wiley Post, which are plastered all over the walls of the shrine. And if you come down to see us sometime, we want you to go up there and look the shrine over, because it does bring out a character that was quite unique in his day. The character of a man who showed the phoniness and the sham of society, and he got away with it. The millionaires laughed at themselves just like in the days of Molière. They laughed at themselves, and they liked it, and they made friends with Will Rogers. This shows that people really, deep in their heart, they like to laugh at themselves. Because when they laugh at themselves and don't take themselves too seriously, they're unmasking this human ego and putting it in its rightful place. Martin Luther, he was pretty serious about it, but he picked up a bottle of ink, and he threw it at the devil when the devil appeared to him in his study. And he hurled it at the wall, and that blot, they tell me, is still there. Well, you see, this was a very serious thing with him, but Moria made a statement about the devil that I thought was very interesting. He made it as Thomas More. He said, "The devil, that proud spirit, cannot stand to be mocked," M-O-C-K-E-D. See? Therefore, in a sense, if we can learn to laugh at ourselves, we can actually break the ice that sort of covers us and prevents us from seeing our real self. And this is very valuable. I recall early in the Pearls how Master Moria said, "A twinkle of mirth is needed on earth." Now, there is a serious side to this business, however, and the serious side is that the divine creation, the holy perfect creation of God, needs to be revealed by the unmasking. It is not just a matter of ridiculing our human ego, which in many cases has served us well, has helped us to discover many beautiful things about ourselves, because all that is in the ego is not bad. It just sometimes becomes too rigid, too centered upon its own doings, and therefore it becomes frozen in time It doesn't move to the right or to the left. And this rigidity, of which Michael spoke, I think, this morning, if I recall correctly. I don't always remember everything the Masters say. I hear it at the time, but I don't think you remember it all either. He mentioned this rigidity. You see, eternity is circular. I think most of you can understand this. It is fulfilled in laws of cycles. I once read how that in the days of old the Vestal virgins climbed the stairs of cycle, that is, cycle stairs. This shows that it is possible for us to utilize the laws of God to reach out of our present era in time and do what the prophets have done in the past, climb the stairs of the cycles. And we can also descend back in time, down those stairs, and make historical comparisons of eras. But this requires a great deal of spiritual advancement, but it is possible for you to do it. And it is valuable because it makes man to be untethered to the moment of the now, or rather, this present moment. And it brings him into the eternal now, where the past, the present, and the future blend in one grand, noble concept, a whole unit, rather than just increments. We reach a point, however, in this life where everything becomes very brittle. And this is easy to do. And in the maturing process, which is intended to be a very noble process, we lose sight, that is, we lose our perspective, we lose our way. It's very unfortunate that many times as people mature, they think, well, I'm getting older now and I don't have much time left. How do you know? Down in Los Angeles, we have a member in the summit who's 95 or 96 or 97. And she gets around mighty well. You don't know. You may have a lot of time left. And this is one thing that you should unmask in yourself, this silly concept of saying you don't have any time left. It isn't how long you live anyway that counts, it's how well you live. And some people have crowded more living into just a few short years than others have crowded into 10 lifetimes. A lot of people drink the froth, but very few understand what there is in the full-bodied measure of life. It's so important that we learn then that in removing the mask from the self, it's the self we're uncovering, the real self. Do you see what I mean? I hope I'm making it clear to you that it's to take it off from the divine presence and show the divine, that which is shining through the mask. It's so powerful, so radiant that it shines through the mask. Now, I'll give you some illustration of this. I'll relate it to my personal self and to some of the boys that have traveled with me. We often go in a closed car, and we don't even step out sometime to get hardly a drop of sunlight. I came as white as could be over to this conference, but did you know that I tan from the radiation? I tan when the Master speaks through me. I've been known to get a tan so deep that I look like as if I've been down in Mexico. That's putting on the mask, I guess. But this is true. I get an actual tan, and some of the boys that have been with me in the car, traveling, or however we travel, they have also gotten a tan as the Master's radiation poured through. And it's perfectly natural. Radiation will tan you. The sun will tan you, you see. It's the sun of the Master's presence that is coming through. So there is a real you and there is a false you. But I sometimes think that words are very inadequate tools to convey ideas. because the false you is really the mask that itself will be discarded. And we hang on to the mask, and I think sometimes one of the great fallacies in this whole process is that we keep thinking that we are going to change the mask and make the mask to look like the divine presence. But this isn't true at all. The mask is that false creation which we have thought to be our self. The creation that we are going to not only discard but never pick up again. How much of life, as you have lived it now, would you like to retain for all eternity? Ask yourself the question. How much of living, as you have lived it in this life alone, would you want to say, this is so valuable and I want to keep it forever? That's a pretty good test. I would go so far as to say that every virtuous act that you have ever done that has helped someone else or brought a little ray of sunshine into the world or into someone's life is a thing of worth. And you could say, well, I'd like to keep the memory of that. Well, you will. I don't mean that you'll keep that memory in the sense that you're going to say, oh, I was good to somebody once. I don't mean it that way. I mean that you will rejoice more in the things that you have done that have assisted the unfoldment of good in the world than you will in anything else. And therefore, this should clue you in. This should be a clue to the worthwhile things in life that will unmask what is of value and what is not of value. When you pull the mask off, you should see shining through a splendid, radiant, divine being, the real you. And that real you cannot be concentrated upon too much. This is why the masters continue to stress many of the same things again and again, because of the density of our own human creation. We have lived so long and we've thought so hard upon externals that internals have almost been ignored by people. Yet internal values and internal beauty are the greatest things in the world because they're real. A lot of ladies wear costume jewelry simply because they can't afford to buy the real thing. But you show me the lady today that would not be happy and proud to wear genuine diamonds as big as eggs if she could find the money to buy them. This is all very true. The phoniness in the world is the result, in some cases, of economic necessity, and in other cases, it's just because people don't know the value of things. Elizabeth was speaking, I think, this morning on color. We don't wish to be fanatics on color. We don't wish to be fanatics on anything. We have found that there are people and there are religions where they stress externals, where they try to create the idea that in removing the mask we have to destroy beauty. So they say, don't wear lipstick, don't wear powder, don't wear rouge, be natural. Fine. This is a good idea if you have a natural complexion. Some ladies are blessed with it, some men are blessed with it. Some have a poor complexion. Some require powder because their skin is oily. These are cosmetic values. I do not see that religion should invade the privacy of men's lives. That which makes people look a little better seems to me to be wholly justified until such a time as one can attain enough God control over their form to make the form respond to the impetus of the divine within. I'd find no fault in someone in the audience dyeing their hair and being a member of the activity. If that helps you in some way to feel younger, this is perfectly all right. We don't in any way leave these things in the domain of religion. We don't feel that religion should invade these matters at all. We don't feel that the masters are going to stress this. I don't think this is the phoniness we wish to take off. The phoniness we wish to take off is more the pseudo ideas that we have that have no real value. Ideas that have no value to us. Ideas of self-importance when we're not any less important than any other human being upon earth, but we're not any more important. It's just as wrong, in my opinion, if you're a being that wants to remove the mask, for you to belittle yourself as it is for you to exalt yourself. And please remember this. I don't think much of a person's cutting themselves down or coming up to me and saying, "Oh, I'm so nothing, I hate to bother you or take up your time." I am here to serve everyone. And I feel that every human being should remember that every other human being is entitled to the respect for the God flame that is within. And therefore what we seek to unmask is the God flame within, so that the light that's within people can shine forth, and then there will be nothing phony about anything. Not a thing. Everything will be real because it is real. It will not only seem real, but it will be real. Then the jewels that we will wear will be the spiritual jewels of light substance that are within our mind and being. And this is the important thing in life. So when you come to a point where you desire to unmask yourself, this is not to belittle yourself. It's to get rid of the shell of illusion about anything, yourself or someone else. If you're round-shouldered because you're stooping over all the time, well, then straighten your spine. That's what it means. If there's something wrong with your thinking and every once in a while you're beginning to doubt your own capacity, then remember that God is within. And remind yourself as many times as you need to that you're alive. Pinch yourself if you have to, but don't bruise. These ideas are simple, but they are vital to the realization pattern of God identity. As long as we keep on fooling ourselves by wearing a mask of unreality, we are going to suffer the ill effects of our own wrong thinking. This is not mere metaphysics, Christian Science, unity, call it what you will. This is actually practical ascended master law. The ascended masters are practitioners of truth, but the truth that they export into our octave is strictly for our benefit and the benefit of humanity. But if we're going to be beneficiaries of their wisdom, we have to use it. I catch myself every once in a while doing something or saying something that I feel is not compatible with the Master's principles. And when I see it happening, I don't let it go by. But neither does anyone else. But nevertheless, this is one of the prices you have to pay for being in the public eye. But all of us can open our own eyes to see ourselves as we really are. And as I said before, put away from your consciousness the idea that you're a little tiny idiot of some kind. Now, some people don't think they're idiots. They think they're very wise. Put that idea away, too. Realize that your God presence has all the qualities of wisdom, all the qualities of compassion, all the qualities of peace, all the qualities of Christ's victory, every quality you need to make your ascension. If you will remind yourself that these qualities exist within the God flame in the upper picture on the chart, if you'll fix that in your mind, this human person will do like old General MacArthur. It won't die, it'll just simply fade away. You won't even have to take the mask off because the mask will fade away. It'll perish. But in its place, the spiritual flowers will grow in the garden of your heart. And it isn't important that your neighbor sees them. If your neighbor has spiritual vision, your neighbor will see them and rejoice with you. And you will rejoice with your neighbor when you see the flowers of spiritual expansion coming to life. This is the thing. Avoid phoniness in anything you do, because we pay a terrible price for it. Every time you create an illusion and consciously know that you're creating it, every time that you're deceived knowingly or deceive others knowingly, you are weaving a veil that one day the law will require you to fight through. Therefore, learn to look within with the purity of a child. Learn to evaluate the flame that God has placed within you as being the be-all and end-all of existence. It is. It's the endless circle, the endless cycle of life. The outer self, you know, comes to an end. Yet, haven't we all died daily, as St. Paul says? Every time we lay our body down to rest at night, we go out of that body temple, and we're maybe up there playing hide and seek with the stars, or maybe we're swimming down here in the ocean with the undines somewhere, or maybe we're leaping from cloud to cloud with the sylphs, or maybe we're over at an ascended master temple. But wherever we are, there God is. So learn to enjoy this universe. You're going to be in it for a long, long time. You know, the suicide entity works overtime in all the cities. The suicide entity has worked a lot in San Francisco. And people have jumped off of some of these bridges because they feel that they're tired of the phoniness of life. Well, in reality, there is no phoniness. People have created it. They've wrapped it around themselves. It is the mask that they wear. And they're tired of that mask. There's only one way to remove it, and that's to tear it off and throw it away. Look at yourself as you really are in the eyes of God. Don't see yourself through your own eyes. See yourself through God's eyes, and God will hold a vision for you that you can live up to. And He will believe with you that you can live up to it. And actually, this is the way to happiness. Not only happiness today, but perpetual happiness. Remember one thing, and this is a solemn warning. No one ever begins to fabricate the divine self through love of that self that will not find that their faith will be tested. Do not expect, simply because you do these things one day, that it's going to remain with you forever. It's a permanent gift, but you have to externalize that gift daily by renewing your determination to do it. The mask is thrown away and discarded. It can be picked up again. And you can keep on tricking yourself if you want to. A lot of people do it. But when you determine that you're going to renew your covenant with your divine self every day, that you're going to see behind the mask and let that light shine through, do that day after day, and then life will continually smile upon you with greater and greater measure of kindness, because you are harmonizing yourself with the life principle of Almighty God. This is what the Ascended Masters have taught us. They have taught us to relax, to be calm, to trust in God, to adore cosmic law and cosmic principles, to feel joy that we are free from the world's matrix. You know, wouldn't it be a frightful thing if you had to live in your homes with some of the world's matrices all around you? If you had to live with their music and have it dinging into your ears all the time? If you had to look at the pictures that they want you to look at? Well, it wouldn't take very long before you'd find yourself falling into decay. It's the mental furniture that you have that is very important to you, because that is what you furnish your home with. Not the sofas you buy, not the beds you lie on, not the chairs you sit on, but it is the spiritual furnishings of your house of light that determine just how happy or how sad you'll be. We hope that as you continue to unmask yourself, not necessarily to discover that you're a phony, but to discover that you're real, that ever new joy will beam its way, will wing its way into your world, here, now, always, and forever. We want to thank you. I hope these little thoughts have had some benefit to you. It's my desire.